And good evening, everyone, and welcome to our weekend wrap for the week one of the final series. Thankfully, a very happy weekend wrap, I'd imagine, and I'm joined, as usual, by Macca and Nikki. How you going, guys?
Yeah, very good, thanks.
A little tired, and as you can hear, had fun yelling last night.
Yeah, so I heard a few comments saying it was a little quiet, but I seriously doubt that.
Not when the Eddie chant started going.
Yeah, I think they had the mics turned off or turned down on the TV because I couldn't imagine 50,000 people being quiet, especially when we started to kick away in the third quarter.
Wouldn't be quite near Nikki, I wouldn't think.
Well, I was actually sitting directly above where North came off, and I did go to the little aftermatch function where Theo was interviewing. He interviewed Sauce and Clarkie. And Theo he's the guy who does the on-ground interviews. And he actually said at the end he was trying to interview Eddie. The crowd started the Eddie chant. He's standing, if not a metre away, probably closer from Eddie, and he couldn't hear Eddie speak. That's how loud the crowd is on the ground.
Yeah, right. Well, it was a very good result. So let's kick on. We've got a lot to fit in over the next 45 minutes. So let's start off with the results as we do. And, of course, on Thursday night, we saw probably the upset of the first week of the finals. The Bulldogs, 14 goals, 15.99, getting up over an extremely disappointing West Coast, 7 goals, 10.52. They didn't give a yelp. Friday night was probably the match of the first week. One of the usual classics that the Cats and the Hawks now seem to dish up on a regular basis. The Cats getting up 12 goals, 13.85 to the Hawks, 12 goals, 11.83 with Isaac Smith missing one after the siren that he probably should have kicked. And then yesterday we had the Giants, the inaugural Giants appearance in finals, and doing very well, giving the Swans a bit of a touch-up, 12 goals, 19.91 to 7 goals, 13.55, and sending the hapless Swans our way. And, of course, the game that we're most interested in was our shellacking of the Kangaroos, particularly after half-time. 21 goals, 15, 141 to the Kangaroos, 12 goals, 7.79, and probably the best thing they did all night was say goodbye to their four long-serving players in Harvey, Del Santo, Ferrito, and Petrie. What do you think, guys?
Well, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Nikki.
Watching that game on Thursday night, and I just thought West Coast were played exactly like how we played against them. It was so much a mirror of that game, and it was just, there was no way they were coming back at all. And I did get a little bit annoyed at people talking up the Hawks-Cats game with how they were saying that was a great example of football. You know, there were no mistakes. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what game did you watch? Because there were mistakes from start to finish. And particularly in that last quarter, it was who stuffed up the least was going to be the one that won. It was a great game of footy to watch, but it wasn't quality because they just beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah, quality
intensity
of the intensity in the contest. If you were looking for a pre-season bruise-free game of keepings off footy, you weren't looking at the right game.
Yeah, that wasn't happening. But it was the way people were talking about it and saying, and this is on the radio on Saturday morning, of how, a great example of pure football it was. And they were talking about skills, and I'm just like, not really. When you have Dangerfield missing a handball, missing a teammate 5 metres away, and other things like this, it was an absorbing game of football, but it wasn't pure skills as they were kind of implying. But it was a great game to watch.
Actually, I agree with both your comments there. In the West Coast game, it was exactly as we were against when we played them here. For some reason, West Coast seem to be shitting themselves all the time, and they're just full of nervous apprehension all the time and fumbling and making a mess of the ball. and doing all the things that we did. And it's almost as if they spent all their good football against us the week before and then had just had the shell left to present to the Bulldogs. But in fairness, we can't take anything away from the Bulldogs because they played a daredevil, reckless type of football where instead of trying to pick their way through West Coast, but they charged at them and they ran in waves and with handballs flicking it around all over the place, got through West Coast and made them look rather silly, I thought.
Yeah, the Bullies certainly played with high intensity, and no, the West Coast didn't seem to have the cohesion through the midfield that they showed against us, and they looked terribly flat, whether it was the weight of expectations. It's hard to gauge the impact of the bye. West Coast were coming into the final series with a bunch of momentum and fell over. We came in on the back of a pretty solid loss, but the bye allowed us to regroup, shake some niggles and put on a good performance. So I don't know whether the bye is an equaliser or whether it actually hampers certain teams, to be honest.
Well, yeah, you are right. I think it's going to mean different things to different teams. For example, for us, I think it was a very good thing after having had a shellacking from West Coast the week before. So the bye was very, very good for us. For a team that went in with momentum, it's a bit of a momentum stopper. So it's going to be both good and bad. But West Coast, just on that particular game, the last comment I'd like to make about that is I was very angry with our performance against West Coast, the way we allowed Gaff just to sit back unmarked and have his 41 possessions. And I nominated that before the game. It was something we had to do. We didn't, and we looked bloody stupid, and we got beaten. Bulldogs, they tagged Gaff, and they made his life difficult. And West Coast, he was saying that Feenix, that they couldn't operate in the midfield like they did against us, and they didn't because of that. So that's that particular game. And as for the other one, well, as Nikki said, because it was such a high-octane, high-pressure game, it had plenty of errors in it, but it was a very good spectacle to watch. And it was a very dramatic finish. And there was a point there that Feenix often makes, that you should have a routine when you have a set shot for goal. And there's Smith, he took, if you count them, 4 steps.
Yeah. Now, he got too close to the man on the mark.
Look, he took only 4 steps, Nicky, and he would always take, if you watch when that guy normally has a shot for goal, he probably takes about anything up to 20 paces, and he took 4 bloody steps, and when you take a very few number of steps, there's a tendency to swivel, and he did. He swiveled and kicked it to, just hooked it, and Exactly. And Feenix, there's a perfect illustration of what you say every week. Well, and I just want to make the point, well, Nikki might be, because, you and I thought that 10 goals was achievable. No, there was implications I was on a bloody another planet when I said 60 points, but you joined me out there, Feenix, but we were actually on Earth and they were on the other planet.
I saw most of it up until, of course, 3/4 time, and then had to leave to go to another certain game that was on that day. I kind of went the way I was expecting it to, because it being at ANZ. I think Sydney have quite a bit to answer for in terms of concussion. The AFL with Kennedy and Tippett. With Tippett, with his history, should never have been allowed back on the ground.
No, well, that's right. And apologies to listeners, I'd muted myself, so they probably heard a little bit of space for the last couple of seconds. Anyway, never mind. Go on.
but just going on from what you're saying there, Nicky, Tippett definitely shouldn't have been allowed back onto the ground because he looked gaga, actually. So it's no surprise to see that he's not going to be playing next week, which is I think it is a bonus, because while he hasn't been a success as a forward for Sydney, he's been very good as a ruckman. So
he's been very good this year, Macca.
I'm saying he has been this year, he's had a good year, but mainly because he's been doing a lot of ruck work when he plays. But you said, what do we think of I think you were implying, what do we think of Sydney? Well, Sydney is a team that's got a massive midfield. It's got potentially the best midfield in the league. And they've got Buddy at one end, and they've got perhaps Rampy at the other end, but there's a lot of other mediocre stuff around them, I think, and they have got by with this brilliant midfield that makes the rest of their players who are, when I say mediocre, that's probably a harsh, but they're only average players, and there's a lot of them are young players learning, and it makes them look good because of the quality of the midfield around them. And GWS have a very good midfield themselves, and they matched the Sydney midfield, and they kept them to a very, very average performance. And as a result of that, GWS had winning positions all around the ground, I thought.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Macca, and I think that's why SCG suits them a little more because it's a shorter ground and they can carry a few. I think, without getting into next week's game, I think our forward, they might just struggle with our forward line, I think, and with Tippo out of the scene, with at least concussion and maybe a cracked jaw, and them losing their rising star winner for the rest of the season with a hamstring, Callum Mills. Don't know. If put it this way, I would have much rather, even before that game, I would have much rather have played Sydney than the Giants in a semi.
And
sorry, go on.
Just on the loss of Callum Mills, he's not just a junior; he's a damn good backman, and he's been probably very close to being their best backman in the last few weeks. So they will miss him.
Yep, absolutely. Anyway, let's get on to the real deal. And as I mentioned earlier, it was Adelaide 141 to the Kangaroos 79. A close-ish tussle in the first half, probably aided by our ineffective scoring in the first half. But certainly once we got a bit of a sniff halfway through the third quarter, that was all she wrote. And you just got a sense, even before halftime and certainly after halftime, that it was just waiting there to be broken open. And once Eddie did a few good things and Tex got on the end of one early and we started kicking straight, that was the end of that.
Yeah, that goal from Tex about a minute in at the start of the third, that just elevated everything. And you were right, being at the ground, you could really tell the second quarter was that even though they were kind of in it and it was close, it just felt like we were on top and just needed those chances just to go our way.
Certainly the fear watching it from mine was that we hadn't put them away and that we might come out a little bit tentative in the third and open the door, but thankfully that wasn't the case.
Well, there's a fair comment you make there, Feenix, because we just didn't put them away. Nikki, a question to you. You were at the ground and I wasn't. But just off the TV, I thought it looked like Walker was showing a lot more confidence and leadership, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some... I was going to raise this a little bit later when we started talking about individual players and such, because I've seen some comments about how McGovern, and he had a quiet game and he's going to get dropped and he needs to do more. I was on that, not the lower level, but the second tier. And so you can see the movement patterns so clearly, and we were just to the side of, as I said before, of the point post a little bit. So you've got a really nice view of that coming towards the ground. It's actually Walker's work with McGovern and the others, just their running patterns from the very start was really pleasing to see. After that game against West Coast, when none of the forwards were moving, they were on their bike from the start. And when you actually look at that final siren go in the last quarter, can you really tell who actually won the game and who lost it? From our players' reactions, they were just like, oh, game's over, we can rest now. And
even the song after the game back in the rooms, I mean, they sang it with happiness and pride, but it certainly wasn't belted out like perhaps a Geelong over Hawthorn, being such a close game.
Yeah,
no,
but
it was like we got one step's done. One step's done. We got more to go.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too, Nikki. I think that our coach is very much a realist, and he would have made it very clear to the boys, it's essential to win the game, and because it is the first step to getting where we want to go to, and I think they treated it exactly like that. Another question to you, Nikki. You were sitting there where we farewelled the North players as they left. Adelaide's been getting some very, very classy reviews for the way they acted and the treatment that was given to the North players and the way it was done. What did you think of it?
I would say that about 80% of people were still there from the game. So maybe 20% had left. 80% were still there because we kind of knew it was coming. And once you actually saw the players start to come over and every to a person, everybody was on their feet, and I could clearly see the North players' faces, and they were shocked that this is the reception that they were getting. And you see the North Melbourne officials, because their entire board was there, they were just like looking up in wonder at the crowd doing this. And it's just like, well, of course we do. We booed you every time you got near the ball, but the game's over. You've been an absolutely amazing testament to the game, all four of them, even bloody Spud Ferrito, for what they've done for that club. And, yeah, you do respect them and you honour them in that way. And I think it's because Tex and Source actually said that Tex actually on the ground said to all of the players straight away, said, don't you celebrate, we've got to do this first. And to me, that was really interesting that he, and talking about, him and his captaincy, etc., that's the way he is. It's, there is respect for the opposition and there's a time and a place for other things. And you would think for a guy who's such a larrikin, Walshy made the right call.
I think too the club, was shown a lot of respect by the football community last year during the Walshy saga, and I think if anything, that was instructive in terms of how the football community responds to big occasions, and if any club is going to show respect to in that kind of situation, it's going to be us. So let's have a look at some head-to-head stats, shall we?
These are interesting.
Well, they are. Yeah, we won the disposal count 385 to 350. We certainly outkicked them, which is when we play our best football is when we're using the ball. We had a 1.3 kick to handball ratio to North Melbourne, just under 1-to-1 kick to handball. So we forced them to use handball a lot. A lot of teams try to use handball against us to get through our defensive structures. It wasn't quite that successful for North, but certainly when we kicked the ball more than handball, we're at our most efficient. Smashed them in marks, 101 to 67, and that goes along with our winning the uncontested ball and using it effectively. We out-tackled them too, so we certainly... And I've felt... The one thing I always like when I'm watching Adelaide is if we're in their faces a bit, and we were certainly playing with intensity, that it was no surprise to me to see our tackle count up around the mid-60s. Source, I thought, did really well against Goldstein. It was actually good to see Source get off the ground. He was jumping quite well. 49 hit-outs to 41, 10 frees to 15, and that was only because of 5 junk time frees at the end. It was 5 to 15 halfway through the last quarter.
Yeah, typical though, Victorian team brings it to Victorian umpires and they umpire accordingly. I must admit, it's just what they won't pay to us. I think most of the North frees were there, but it's just the ones they won't give to us.
Yeah, just incredible. And, obviously it had no impact or no negative impact on the outcome. And I think because the game wasn't close, the umpiring performance wasn't scrutinised. But I was scratching my head more often than not. And you're right, Macca, it wasn't the ones that were paid so much as the ones that were missed. Anyway,
yep.
the big stat for mine is our disposal efficiency per scoring shot. 10.5 disposals per scoring shot to North's 18.5. So we were very, very efficient in how we got the ball forward. We were inside 50, 68 times to 40. It was 30 to 20, I think, at half time, and you wondered why we weren't 6 or 7 goals in front at that point. But yeah, we were certainly very efficient in the way that we moved the ball. Brodie Smith was instrumental in that. What was the metres gained at the end? It was about 900, I think.
Yeah, 926.
Yeah, I was going to say, he nearly got a bloody kilometre.
Yeah, we'll go through individual performances, but it was that style of game that we played where we were breaking the line through the midfield and kicking long, and it was great to see. Not only out of our centre clearances, but also when the ball was being pinged in. More often than not, we were actually making a contest with that high ball in. In the past, particularly out of centre clearances, you'd often find us hack a kick out of the middle and then it lands into the arms of an opponent, across half back and out it comes. Whereas, we were making a contest across half forward there and at times making things happen. But at least the ball wasn't coming pinging out. As it sometimes does. So,
and because we had the Eddie Betts exhibition as well, we're very, very privileged that this guy has come to our club and given us performances like he has, because on Saturday night was one of those rare things where a footballer really gives you something to remember for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah, you had it on a string. But let's continue with head-to-head, Macca. Keep your powder dry until we go through individuals.
I just love the guy. I wanted to say it, that was all.
Right, now get off. Effective disposals, 294 to 259. We're at 76.5%. They're at 74. Contested marks, we also gave them a belting, and I thought it was an area that really showed improvement over the previous few weeks. We took 19 to 10 marks inside 50, but it was those 21 to 12 contested mark stats I felt were quite telling, particularly considering North rely on their height and their marking strength, because they're not a quick side, not an overly quick side. They're an inside ball-winning team and a marking team, and we just belted them in that area. 45 to 37 clearances.
And one of them was D-Mac.
D-Mac. Why are you guys going to end? You know the drill. Head-to-head. Head-to-head stats, and then we'll bloody talk about individuals.
Quite right. You love D-Mac like I love Eddie, so...
Well, probably not as much as I love
That's
Eddie.
That's it. I've got nothing left to say on the bloody head-to-head stats, except we bloody won.
And isn't that really what counts at this time of the year? We just need to keep winning.
Yeah. Look, I do find it interesting the way that we won. I wrote a piece for our website earlier in the week, and I made mention of the fact that we needed to move the ball more aggressively, and I love some of our run through the middle. I love some of our link-up handballing through the middle. It was back to that aggressive, daring, risk-taking ball movement. Very decisive. And it really showed. What we need to do is to be able to do that against a team that's going to apply a bit more pressure.
Yeah.
Well, what was good was when they were applying some pressure at the start in the first and the second quarter, that even though we still wanted to do that daring run, instead of being sucked into doing that long kick to their spare player, we would then do that little hold up around like the middle of the ground and just do those little kicks around till we got the kind of the area that we wanted to kick it to and a player free. And it was really pleasing to see that we weren't just going to grab it and bomb it no matter what, that there was some thought going into it as well. We were reading the way the game was going and we were adjusting our game plan accordingly. I was quite pleased to see that occur, particularly after watching those other finals, and you saw that the teams that were winning, you had to do that little quick flicking handball around, just keep the ball moving and then break at the right moment. And I kind of felt that's what we were doing in that first half.
Yeah, I felt there was less panic around the contested ball, particularly in the second half when we kind of gained some ascendancy. And I also like the fact that we were using that little diagonal kick into the corridor again that we were doing earlier in the year, something that, the better teams tend to try and cut off that little diagonal pass, but we used it to good effect against North, and it certainly allowed us to get some overlap run going, and again, Brodie and the like were the main, and DMAC for that matter, were the main beneficiaries of that.
Yep, and it was guys like Lairdy that got us back doing that type of thing. And you're quite right, Feenix, that it is a diagonal cut back because you've got the option of coming down long down the wing, but you cut back into the centre. And if you get the guy there that's on his own, then he's got the whole field ahead of him to kick it to.
Yeah, well, it opens up options, Macca, because the opponent tends to drift across to follow the ball movement. And it gives you two options then, it gives you three options really. Being central on the ground, you can either continue with the switch and go wide to a bloke running down the outside, or you can start handball training it through the middle if you get some overlap, or you can actually wrong foot the opposition by going back, to the wing again to the wing that it just came from, and catch them out of position. So I mean, it's the sort of thing that we were doing and creating all that rebound in the first few weeks of the season, and then we worked out pretty well by a lot of opponents, and they were cutting off that corridor run. But North gave it to us, and we were quite happy to take it.
And as you say, we've now got to prove that we can do that against the really good sides as well.
Yeah, in a compressed environment. I mean, the SCG is a little bit wider, but it's certainly shorter, so we might be able to get some width, but without going into too much depth on it, it'll be interesting to see how that eventuates in terms of our spread.
Now, the other interesting thing that happened during the game and wasn't picked up by the TV commentators, because really they would actually have to be paying attention to what was occurring, is that we had players having extended periods sitting on the bench. So pretty much the last half of the second quarter, almost, I think it would be, Lever sat on the bench. He had a really long extended period. They did it with Lever. I think then it was Cheney's turn. And I wondered whether this was Pike watching those other games and seeing how players were getting quite tired in the last quarters, very much so in all those other three games that it had. And so he was just giving those longer breaks for some of our players. It was really interesting.
Well, Pikey said after the game that he, in that last quarter, he was resting some of his main players.
He was doing it earlier than the last quarter.
Yeah. I felt like they were rotating off the third tall, Magic Door in particular. Like they had Cheney on him at some stages, they had Lever on him at some stages, and I just felt like they were rolling through that position.
You're right, absolutely right. Yep.
Let's have a look at some individuals. Oh, go on, Nick.
I'll just say on Magic, he hasn't impressed me prior to this game so much because he's come across as quite a dumb footballer. He's got all these great attributes that we know, but he's never quite been able to read the play or to use them in terms of fluid movement and forward. He did some really great leads and everything else last night, and you could kind of see he's going to be a hell of a handful going forward if he can continue that path.
Yeah, but he was... He had the luxury of the fact that we were sort of rotating defenders off of him. We had Talia dedicated to Brown, and he did a fantastic job on Brown. And
he did.
And Hardigan, he gave... Well, Petrie wouldn't have to have had a shower after the game. He never, didn't raise a sweat, never got near the ball. Hardigan played a fantastic game.
No. He would have to because he got put in the ruck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, did he touch it? But anyhow, no, Hardigan, he played fantastic on him. And I thought the Magic Door, I don't know that he played more intelligent, but the one thing he did do right, he led straight. He led straight up the ground.
Yeah,
I did some nice linking ones to lose our defenders.
Yeah, he benefited from having our mid-talls on him, like Lever and Cheney. I'm sure if he was, if it was a tighter game, I think they probably would have made the shift and put Hardigan on him at some stage. Hardigan's got the strength to go with Majak and Petrie, as you guys rightly pointed out.
Yeah, you're on the money there, Feenix. I think he got the benefit of that.
All right, let's just look at some individual stats. For mine, Brodie Smith was our standout best player on the ground, notwithstanding Eddie's theatrics. 29 disposals, 18 kicks, 11 handballs, 6 marks, 2 goals, 2 tackles, 8 inside 50s. Exactly what you want from Brodie Smith. 23 uncontested possessions, went 86% disposal efficiency. 4 rebound 50s. I thought it was a complete game from Brodie. How'd you guys see that?
BOG by the length of the straight.
And I loved his collusion with Sloane for the shepherd on the mark.
Yeah, that last goal.
Yeah, he got the goal, yeah. Yeah, but no, you're right, Feenix. It was a fantastic defender's game. You couldn't ask for better.
And, there was a query on Brodie because he hasn't bounced back from concussions terribly well in the past, but my God, did he come out fresh and firing, running into packs and, using his pace and those raking long kicks to advantage. I just felt it was the best game I've seen from Brodie for, I reckon, 18 months.
Yeah, since that Collingwood game.
Yeah, totally agree.
I also felt that Crouchy had a really strong game inside the contest and also got a little bit of outside ball. 29 disposals as well, 12 kicks, 17 handballs. The 4 tackles, 4 inside 50s, 23 uncontested possessions from Matt. So he did get outside a little bit more. And I felt like he used the ball particularly well for him. 72.5% disposal efficiency, 3 clearances. So a slightly different stat sheet from Matt than what we usually used to seeing from him. But I felt he was very effective and didn't stop all game.
But he's learning, isn't he? He's learning. He's always known the art because he and his brother used to brawl in the backyard. He's always known what it's like to fight for your life to get the footy, and he's very, very good at that. But he's now learning the art of getting the ball on the outside as well, and he's going to end up to be a very, very good footballer.
He's incredibly underrated amongst the media because they talk up young players like Bontempelli, etc. in the midfield and these younger ones that are coming through. And they forget that for time on ground, he is the most damaging player in the AFL this year. And like that West Coast game, he was one of those who was still trying. And I actually haven't seen a drop-off from him. So he's actually been remarkably consistent this year. And I think that can only bode well for the future.
Yeah, if you draw his graph for the season, Nikki, you're quite right. It's an upward graph. It's just gradually been edging up every week.
Yeah, and, we keep talking about comparisons, and for mine, we're going to be talking about him in the same breath as Sam Mitchell in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
It's exactly that kind of play. He's a distributor. He's starting to use his leg more effectively, and as he gets more confident and more fit, I think we're just going to see him come on in leaps and bounds. And it's interesting that of the 2 Crouch boys, we've always designated Matt as the inside player, and yet certainly over the last couple of weeks it's been Brad that's been more inside. Brad had 22 touches, 15 handballs out of that. He had 5 tackles, really strong tackling too from Brad, 3 inside 50s, 10 contested possessions and 6 clearances. So of the 2 boys, Brad's certainly more inside, and I felt Brad was pretty good. Didn't get huge numbers, but I felt he made his presence felt around the contest.
Yeah, I like this game.
He did some really key things, like that the tackle that you mentioned. I mean, both the Crouch boys, I love it. It's like they're wrangling sheep or something because they get that other player on the ground and you see them both throw the leg over and, just hold them down with their entire body weight. It's hilarious to watch.
I don't know about the leg over that.
But that's what they do if you watch them. And it was so funny in the SANFL today because Greenwood actually did a very similar tackle and he did the same thing and he brought the leg over to hold that player down. It's like, have you been practicing tackling with the Crouch boys? Because it looks exactly the same way that they both do it.
There was one very vicious tackle from Brad. Oh, I would have hated to be on the end of that one.
Yeah, he's certainly tackling with intent. It gives me the impression he's starting to run on top of the ground too now, Brad. Look forward to big things from him next year, if not, through the end of the final series. I actually thought our second best player, apart from Eddie, was probably Jared Lyons. 23 touches, 14 kicks and 9 handballs. Hit 9 tackles, 6 inside 50s, 10 contested possessions, 6 clearances. That's what you want from a midfielder, and again, he just keeps racking up these
bloody
nice
needs
numbers.
to kick those goals.
Yeah, I was going to make that very point that I have to knock him back a little bit.
He's normally so good.
Yeah, I have to knock him a little bit back from where you said Feenix, because didn't he kick 1 goal 3 off memory?
Yeah, one was a soccer, one was a snap, so,
Oh, I thought.
But he normally...
At least 2 of them he should have got.
Well,
For him, he normally
soccer,
gets
Macca.
them.
One was a soccer off the ground that scraped the
Yeah,
post. The other one was a snap
just hit
under
the post.
pressure. So, apart from those 2, streaky ones, he's kicked 1 goal 1. So there's probably 1 that he should have got.
All right, I doubled it.
But 9 tackles, he's doing his job, and he just keeps racking up these numbers. And I just feel like he uses the ball really well when he gets it. The stats say he was only at 61 disposal efficiency, but I don't remember
Some of
any
his
time...
early kicks were not good.
Yeah, but I don't remember...
He did. He did miss some very obvious kicks early in the piece, which he would normally get. But he did pick up as the game went on. But he does look very comfortable playing at this level now, whereas when he first started, he didn't look comfortable. He's now starting to look like it's natural to him.
Well, some of his clearance work was really, really strong. It wasn't just a hat kick out of there. It was actually decisive ball movement out of the stoppage. So I really enjoyed his game. Obviously, we've got to talk about Eddie. Only had the 12 kicks, so he was pretty quiet. 6 marks.
Come on, Eddie, lift your game.
6 marks, 2 tackles. What else did he have? He had 3 contested marks for the smallest bloke, well, maybe the second smallest bloke on the ground after Harvey. 6 marks inside 50. They just couldn't hold him, and of course the 6 goals straight. Just some of his work. His crumbing work was just spectacular, I thought.
Yeah, it was, but that's his natural forte. But add on to that, a freakish overhead mark and the most amazing mark of doing a Lazarus and rising from the ground and marking the bloody ball. I could not believe that mark.
That was so funny.
It was unbelievable that a guy could he actually got dumped on the ground by his opponent. He's lying flat on the ground, all of a sudden he pops up and marks it in front of them. It was brilliant.
Probably the worst defensive effort by that North Melbourne guy I've ever seen. But just for Eddie to be able to make front spot and even have a crack at taking the mark, let alone taking it, it was ridiculous. His basketball bounce to regather the ball and dish it off to Crouchy for a goal.
Yeah, I loved it.
Is Specky in the first. All that spectacular stuff, but it was those 2 crumbs that he took to kick 2 of his goals. It was just so clean and so quick, and he had 2 or 3 different opponents on him during the night, and I tell you what, they weren't very close to him.
Yeah, but absolute listener to stay front and square. Sorry, Nikki, to interrupt, but as a performer, a guy used to do a lot of crumbing. You got to stay front and square, and Eddie does it. But in fairness to Eddie, he can do it anywhere.
Now that high mark that he actually took, because we had that long bomb that came in up high, and Frito standing on his own directly under the ball, and it's going to be an easy mark. He came absolutely charging towards it, and I could just, because that's the pocket where I was sitting, and the impression I got at the time was he was just going to contest that ball because he wasn't going to make it an easy mark for him. I think that's what his intention was. His intention wasn't to do a high mark. It was just to not let them get an easy kick.
Once he got there,
once he got there,
he could see the ride.
And he was kind of halfway up and goes, I can mark this now. I just started laughing after it. It's like, oh my God, that's what's going to happen. Sauce Jacobs, after the game, was asked about the one where he fell down and popped back up again and marked in front of it. And he was actually standing next to Boomer Harvey when that happened. And Boomer's just looked at Sauce and just gone, God, he's even up marking Robbie Tarrant now, was Boomer's comment. So, and
I think it was Johnny Ralph on Twitter. You don't often hear journalists or see journalists swear, but Ralph tweeted, something like Betts has just done that, and the bloke behind me has gone, that's fucking ridiculous, and that's about all you can say about it.
Yep. And they highlighted, just on that front and square you were talking about, Macca, they highlighted it on Foxtel, comparing the way that he does it and the way that Thomas does, is that he holds off just that little bit. He gets there with a bit of speed, so he's kind of breaking the man, but he times it. His reading of the ball is so good that he comes at the contest not quite to the front, not quite to the back, but he can deviate at that last second depending on where the ball's going to fall. And that front and square one. Yeah, so he then saw it was going over the back, so that's the way he went instead of nipping around to the front. It's just instinctive with him.
Yeah, he's got that little bit of superiority over the average guy who does it, because the average guy is prepared for it to be in a certain spot, but if it goes somewhere else, then they're out of play. But Eddie's is always in play.
Yep, that's right. I thought the commentators made one decent comment for the night. That was absolutely diabolical commentary on Saturday night. But the one
it was Channel 7.
They did say, not only was it Channel 7, it was bloody Brian Taylor, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, Brian bloody Taylor.
Jesus.
He is a spud. He should be called Spud, not Spud Ferrito. Although Spud Ferrito's a spud too.
And I don't think it was him. I think it was actually Matthew Richardson who said that Tommy Lynch is almost the barometer for us. When he's up and about and going well, we tend to win. And I thought Tommy had a really good game, real solid game.
Yeah.
Had the 21 disposals, 12 kicks, 9 handballs. Took the 5 marks, kicked the 4 goals, 3 tackles, 2 inside 50s. I just felt like he was up and back, his usual self. He took 2 marks inside 50s and even got 2 clearances. So, and he didn't burn the ball like he sometimes can do by foot. He was pretty good by foot and kicked straight when he needed to. I thought he was really instrumental in giving us the link-up that we needed.
Yeah, that was in an interview with Richo after the game, and when Richo said that to him. But you are right. I thought Lynch had an exceptionally good game, and his kicking for goal was excellent too, which is very important. He kicked the ones that had to be kicked.
Yep.
Well, the interesting thing was they were very conscious of Eddie and trying to stop him. Well, that didn't happen. So they were very conscious of then Walker and Jenkins, because you notice we didn't get any of our slingshot. They kind of stopped that happening. So we then became a lead-up team. And Lynch is actually a very good lead-up forward. And so it just fell perfectly in to allow him to have those chances.
Well, we play best when we're hitting up high, Nick, in my opinion. When Tex and Lynchy are leading up high and occasionally get Jenkins come up as well. To me, that's when we're playing our best footy, because we're more cohesive going into forward 50. Our slingshot is great when it's working, but often, particularly more recently, it just leads to high bombs into the forward 50, and often, if we're outnumbered, a rebound out. Whereas when we're linking up like that, we can hit up shorter targets 30 metres out, and I would have liked to have seen our little map of where we took our shots, because I reckon we only got 2 or 3 inside 20 metres, and the rest were from a little bit deeper, which is I always like it when we play that way.
Yep, and is it time to mention Nicky's pin-up boy McKay at the moment? Because I loved his game, because that is what he is capable of doing, and we see so rarely. And I thought the game that he played was very important, actually, because he was playing that connecting game and running past, and instead of doing the big bombs, he was doing little short passes that actually hit a chest or intelligent handballs. I thought, I think his efficiency is 92% or something like that.
Yep.
95.5. Best game I've seen D-Mac play since probably, 2012?
Yeah, fair comment.
And he tackled Goldstein.
Yep. 22
And won.
disposals, 10 kicks, 12 handballs. That's the ratio you want from your outside runners. Took the 3 marks, made the 3 tackles, and they were effective tackles. 1 inside 50, 16 uncontested possessions, so it took a couple of clearances. I just felt like he was playing the role that we need him to play. Like you mentioned, Macca, there was none of this panic disposal. There was none of these long bombs. He was very constructive with his work. He ran hard. He ran both ways. It was great to see him play that sort of a game. I want to see him back it up next week.
Yep, if I was his coach, his line coach, I'd say, if you don't play like that again next week, I'll shoot you when you come off.
You're a bit harsh, Macca.
I don't think you're allowed to do that anymore.
No, you're not allowed to do that.
I just wanted to encourage the lad. That was all.
Scare the crap out of him. Look, I thought our back six were really solid. Charles gave, what's his bloody name?
Brown
a touch-up and did a lot of work himself. Took 7 marks. There was a passage there where he took 3 contested marks in a row. I thought he was really good. I thought Kyle Chaney was also very solid. Took some good intercept marks. Was constructive with his work. Jakey Lever kicks his 2nd goal for the season. Never looked
I
like
loved
missing.
him. As soon as he marked the ball, he immediately turned his back and started walking. And I'm just like, dude, you don't want to pass this off, do you?
Yeah, no, that's right. He's got confidence now, and he positioned
And
himself
great
well.
pass from Atkins as well.
Yep.
Really great pass from Atkins.
Yep. So even Hardigan, I thought, who was a little bit quiet and might cop a fine for a reactive flying leg. Hardigan was pretty solid on Petrie. Petrie's not he's still a physical presence, Petrie, so you've still got to compete. And I thought Hardigan did everything he had to do. I thought Lukey Brown was a little bit quiet. Had the 16 disposals, 13 kicks, 3 handballs, 6
Had a
marks.
shot on goal.
Yeah, I don't know, just felt like a bit of a nothing game.
He was primarily keeping Lindsay quiet. I loved his little. We've seen it from him previously this year. He's not backwards and coming forwards to let forwards know when they've ducked or whatever.
Yeah,
and he very much will get in their face about it, and he did that a couple of times with Lindsay. The time Lindsay got off the chain a little bit was actually when Cheney was on him and not Brown. Brown was being rested.
Yeah.
He was much better than he was against West Coast, where he looked a bit restricted. He was a lot more free-flowing, got involved in a lot of that movement out of the back lines. So whilst he didn't get used, some of the times he was creating a lot of run in terms of getting to space, etc. So I was quite pleased with the game that I saw.
But he's carrying a little bit of a sore groin too at the moment.
Yeah. Which you can tell in that kick for goal.
Yeah.
That's why I was going to mention that, Nikki. Yep, on the money.
The other thing, just quickly on Lever, I loved his candy on Brent Harvey as well, too, on the member side.
And Harvey looked so pissed.
It was fantastic.
He was so pissed about it.
And I think some of the media picked up about that he likes to sell candy now because they're using that expression with him quite a lot now.
Yeah, well, it was one of the few good camera angles that Channel 7 put up all night, and it was a front-on view of him stepping Brent, and it was just a really nice little shimmy. It was very subtle and very effective. Look, of the rest, I felt Rory was serviceable. He was tagged by, forget his name, some bloke.
You were right on that one.
What's his bloody name? Hang on, I'll find it.
He was wearing blue and white.
Dumont, he was being tagged by.
It was Dumont.
Yeah.
It was Dumont.
But he's still got the 21 touches.
Yeah.
Notice, Macca, we didn't help him out there at all.
No, we let him struggle for a while. That's us. But Rory, I still think Rory he wins some very, very hard balls, and that's a great inspiration to his teammates, I'm sure.
Oh, the good thing about Rory, too, is he takes marks. He took 7 marks again, and, he marks and then dishes off, but some of the marks that he takes...
that contested one on the wing.
That was
It was
a classic.
amazing.
Classic, that one. What about Tomo? What do you think? What did you guys think of Tomo's efforts?
I liked his game because for me, okay, yes, he was a bit fumbly, and we saw that. He couldn't quite clean grab the ball. But because he's doing that hard body over the ball, there were a couple of times he didn't quite get it, but he stopped them getting a clean grab. There was one down on our half-forward line. I think he did like a couple of little repeat efforts, which was really good to see. And I think that big, hard body is going to be needed very much next week against Sydney.
Oh, look,
no doubt about that.
Yeah, he'll survive this year. There's no doubt about that. And
So his stats were very similar to Lions.
But they were totally different games. And with Tomo, his reflexes still aren't quite as good as they should be, or as they were. In fairness, Tomo's been a champion in his day, and he's just not. Age is catching up with him, and he's just a little bit slower. His reflexes are a little bit slow, but it's still good enough at the moment. The big question is it good enough, and is it going to be good enough next year to sign him up for another year, or are we going to be holding up, bringing people through, or would it be silly to get rid of a bloke and still go in hard? I don't know.
Well, it's interesting how we set up Macca because, as I mentioned earlier, Matt Crouch was playing quite a similar role to Scotty Thompson earlier in the season. But I think as the development of Jared Lyons continues, Matt's been able to get on the outside a little bit more. Lyons plays a bit in and out, and Scotty Thompson is very much in and under, a bit like the old Roger James role back in the day.
Yep.
And as long as Scott continues to do that, I mean, he reads the ball really well, but he just, as you said, his reflexes, I mean, Sauce put a couple down his throat and he coughed them up. A couple of crumbs, he put himself in the right spot and just couldn't one grab the thing. He turned it over a couple of times with panic handballs in the centre square there. But, 8 tackles and 6 clearances. He's got a role to play, and I think this year that role's defined. Whether he goes on next year, I think we'll retain him, but I hope we retain him on the basis that he's no longer first picked.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think we'd all support that in the sense that he gets another year, but he's not a guaranteed first 22. He may be a first 22, but he's not guaranteed for it.
Bit of a Nathan Van Berlo situation, I reckon, where he'll probably get an opportunity early, and if he doesn't come up or as soon as he starts tailing off, I think they'll drop him. We'll talk about the SANFL in a minute, but we do have some talent coming through there in the midfield. So, Richie Douglas is the other one I felt was pretty reasonable. He's been a bit of a whipping boy this year, but I thought some of his centre clearance work was really good. Only had the 20 touches, 12 kicks, 8 handballs, 7 inside 50s, though, which was the real key to his game, I felt, along with 4 clearances. How'd you guys see Richie?
Yeah, well, exactly what you just said. His clearances, particularly his midfield clearances, were pretty good, and the 7 inside 50s bear that out. No, he's not at his very, very best, but he's playing well enough to hold his spot.
And that smother he did of Boomer Harvey's handball, so we know his reflexes are up there. That resulted in a goal to us.
Yeah, and actually a very good point, because I said to Mrs. Macca, you don't, and unfortunately you don't get a stat for that.
No, that's right.
No, but you get all your teammates rushing over to you.
Oh, look, the coaches love it, and then we spectators, we support it. But when you look at the how'd he go situation, there's nothing that says he did that, and it sets up a goal.
Just on that,
or is it a pressure act?
Yeah, or the 1%ers. I don't know. Jakey Lever had 10 1%ers. I only just noticed that. Anyway, I'll stop my bromance with Jake, and we'll just talk quickly about a couple of contentious ones. Mitchie McGovern, how'd you see his game?
Well, as I said at the start, his movement in the forward line, he may not get near the ball, he may not have those leads honoured, but he makes them put a decent defender on him because he's quick and he can mark. He's got a really good football brain. That's the one thing that I love having him down there. So we could rest Jenkins because he did hurt that ankle fairly early on. And so when we were bringing him on, so we didn't have so much of the three talls all the time like we have previously. We were sticking more with two and like Lynch or whatever dropping back in, so the bit more the mid-sized tall. And he just did some really nice movements which didn't show up on the screen. You don't see all that work that he's doing off the ball. A couple of times he was on it and he works so bloody hard to do it. And as we've seen all year, and this is why I love having him in the team, and Pikey talked him up before the game as well, he just brings something to that forward line, and if a defender's got the ball, he's going to charge at him and he's going to hit him. And you can see some of those North Melbourne defenders started to panic when they could see him coming. They had to get rid of the ball. They didn't have time or composure, and he doesn't give them that.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more than that too. Lynch leads one way, McGovern leads another way, and it's all and Walker goes another way, and it's all about spreading and making opportunities for ones on ones, or even just spaces to kick into to run onto the ball. So, and sometimes you get a bloke who, if you've got all these options, you become almost the fifth or sixth option, and that's going to be reflected in your stats. And McGovern does suffer from that, but he does do a lot of those defensive acts that you're talking about too, Nikki. So I'm happy with him being there while we're winning with the structure that we've got, because the structure relies on everybody having a certain role to play.
Yeah, and his link-up work is underrated too. He had 6 inside 50s, so he is a lead-up target. Only had the 9 disposals, 6 kicks, but he had 5 tackles to go along with his 6 inside 50s. So, I actually think McGovern's going to be key next week. I think he's the kid that might just bob up because with that short ground, he might just crash a pack or two.
I don't think worries about the short ground is the fact is that you often, but you miss, you really almost miss a line, and it's often just midfield, full forward line that really makes the thing. Like they always say, that's a centre half forward's nightmare playing at that particular ground. So that's something that worries me there.
Oh yeah, but I think we've got the structure to cater for that. Macca, we've got
that type of ground.
Hopefully, we'll see Jenkins play deep, McGovern floating around there, and Lynch and Tex hitting up with bets at JJ's feet. That's how I'd set it up. Charlie Cameron had the 11 touches. I felt like his game was a typical Charlie game. At times, made a real impact, particularly early on.
Played on the wing.
First quarter was outstanding, I thought.
Yeah, still doesn't get enough of it. But, at the moment, he's just... I mean, it really is a case of horses for courses, and Charlie just gives us that little bit of pace and that little bit of tackling edge that we otherwise would lack. So I think for mine, he stays in, although you'd love him to get another 10 or 15 possessions.
He will eventually. He's just learning the game, and literally is, because if you look at the number of games he's played in total in his life, I think he'd only played 30 games of this type of football before he played his first game for us.
Yeah, that's right.
We were playing him on the wing as well for extended periods, which was very interesting and actually nice to see.
Yeah. Now, a couple of worries out of the game. We've got Josh Jenkins carrying an ankle, and he looked to be a bit inhibited, particularly in the second half, and I think he spent a large portion of the last quarter on the bench.
Yeah,
with the ice.
I heard one of the guys on the radio talking about it today, and he was saying that he went into the game with that ankle, and he's come out of it with that ankle, and it's no worse than when he went in.
Now, am I right in my observation, Nikki, that it was on his ice was on the inside of the ankle?
Yes,
I think it was.
Yeah, I reckon it was. That it was. That's why he was walking really funny.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing was that even though he'd heard it, and he was that little bit restricted, and I think he was being smart, and the rest of our forwards actually compensated for the fact that he couldn't come up the ground to put the pressure on or whatever. When he went into the ruck, because whenever Dawg went into the ruck, we immediately swapped over and Jenkins went straight in. He was still jumping.
Yeah,
still landing on it.
Yeah, he was, and I thought it didn't ruck too badly, actually.
Well, those inside ankles are often the ones where you land and it's just like someone stuck you with a needle, whereas the outside ankle is the one that just gives you constant pain. So that's why I just wanted to check my observation, because I'm pretty sure it's the inside of his left ankle.
I reckon.
Hopefully a week off, some more rehab will get that right for next week. I reckon that much. Who was the other one that... Hardigan looked to be a little bit sore late, and obviously we've got an issue with his report. I mean, it was definitely a reactionary trip, but you would imagine that low impact, reckless, blah blah blah. Hopefully, a fine.
The only issue would be is because Thomas went off afterwards and had his knee checked. It will depend on what the North Melbourne medical report will be, as to whether it's medium or low. And if it gets then graded as medium, that's a game.
Well, it couldn't be medium because Lindsay Thomas came back and showed no impairment and continued to kick and run and all the rest of it. So there's no way it can be classed as medium impact because he spent a total of 5 minutes off the ground.
Although Brian,
I think if they do it as medium, I think we would then contest it.
No,
I think we would too. BT, that great big fat hunk of lard, he did everything possible to try and hang him.
Oh, they hung and quartered him. I mean, Lindsay
and then
Thomas
they're trying to hang Talia as well.
Oh yeah,
for Talia to react like that to Petrie, he was not happy.
What makes me think?
I like our boys not taking a step backwards.
You got Hodgie belts people in the guts everywhere, and nothing in that. Say the Victorian commentators, nothing in that. And we have a little tin pot thing, and they make a great. I mean, they hung Sloaney, and they just shit me.
Right. Well, I think on that note, we've probably done this one to death. I mean, it was a very solid win. It wasn't an unexpected win. There would have been hell to pay if they'd have dropped that one. And really now we're probably back to where we should have been had we won against West Coast. So now we meet Sydney in a knockout semi at the SCG, where we have an 11 out of 17 record, I reckon.
Yeah, we do have a nice record there.
We have a plus record.
No fears here, SCG. Sydney a little bit wounded. We'll probably get done by 20. But in all seriousness, I was quite happy to miss GWS. I think they'll be up and about, and they'll be a stiff opposition for either Hawthorn or the Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs.
Well, either one, but
that's what I said.
Whoever they come up against, it'll be a big ask, and I'd much rather be hitting up Geelong, to be honest with you. Despite our difficulties with that team, I think the MCG might just undo their tactics a little bit.
Yeah, you just mentioned something there. You mentioned the MCG. Geelong have got a ground that holds about 40,000, and their preliminary final is going to be held at the MCG. The rule actually says it's not on your home ground. It's in the ground of your state.
Yep.
And now in GWS, that little tin pot cow paddock that they've got out in the middle of bloody nowhere, they're going to put the preliminary final out there.
You mean the Olympic Park?
No, they're going to at Homebush. Homebush.
Yeah, that's part of the Olympic venue.
But Nikki, for God's sake, 24,000's a capacity.
I know, but it's not. It's not a little tin pot place. There was a lot of money spent on that for the Olympics, so it's not tin pot, Macca. Yeah, capacity-wise, it's not good.
It's tin pot as far as 24,000 goes, Nikki. And that's what I'm getting at. The AFL is a hypocritical situation. You've got Geelong.
Macca, you've only just noticed.
Oh, no. I've always known. But, Geelong, would have as good a case to be paying at their oval or better case than if it's in GWS. They're saying it's only right they get that ground. Oh, bullshit. It's because they own it. That's why they're playing it there.
Well, they can't
Well,
play
what
at
pisses
Simmons
me
because
off-
it's being renovated.
Yeah, and what pisses me off, though, is the fact that there are 2 interstate teams playing off to play against Geelong. So instead of making the Geelong game on the Saturday twilight or Saturday night, they've put it on Friday night up against either us or Sydney, who are going to have a short turnaround to get to that game.
Correct.
They've actually programmed it the wrong way around, and they've done it on
They
purpose.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the hope that it's
allegedly,
not us.
allegedly to reward the higher ranking team.
Yeah,
And
but
the
they didn't
ridiculous
want to give
thing is-
GWS a Friday night game in a prelim. That's the whole problem. They didn't want it. They wanted Sydney people to come out on a Saturday because that's what they do. I haven't had a look at the NRL schedule, but I'd imagine that it'd have something to do with it. But that's the reason. So again, because of media rights and attendances, the competition is skewed. I mean, the perfect opportunity for everyone to have a fair break. And
And the thing is, they know the Adelaide fans travel. So if it was going to be Adelaide, Saturday night is perfect for them to travel and actually get there to boost their money numbers.
No, piss
So
weak by the
they've
Well,
stuffed up completely.
All I can say, they shit me.
Well, they haven't stuffed up, Nikki. It's just a cynical programming, around maximising attendances and maximising media coverage. But
For GWS.
Yeah, let's not try and have a bloody fair and even competition. We spend all this money on equalisation. Well, it's all rubbish. But anyway.
Exactly.
Let's move on. We had a good win in the SANFL as well, getting up over the South. No, they weren't. They came second, didn't they? But getting up over South Adelaide.
Yeah, they came
by,
second.
What's that?
10 goals.
54 points. 22 goals, 140 to 13 goals, 86. Looks like second and third quarter were the match-winning quarters, particularly the third where we kicked 8 goals to 3. And you went, Nikki.
The Cathedral end was most definitely the goal-scoring end. It was pretty much, that's the end where the forwards weren't looking into the sun. I think that's what it pretty much came down to in the end. South got off to a flyer. We looked a little bit lethargic. I wanted to kill Knight. He kept kicking it to South Adelaide. I was just like, boy, I know you can kick it properly, but he wasn't doing that. We were just that little bit off at the start, and then we built our way into it. And once we started to pressure them back, got control, and finally started moving it forward properly without kicking it directly to South Adelaide, then we just took over.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Curtly Hampton's game. I thought Curtly
he's good.
Yeah, he just gave us a little sample of what we're going to get when he steps up to the A grade next year.
And by losing Ellis Yeoman so early with a hamstring strain, put us 2 at the bench. We were absolutely buggered in that last quarter, which is why that scoreline actually flatters South. That's when they started to get goals, was in the end when we were pretty much off our feet. We were rotating players through the wings quite heavily. So we had Seaman, we had Menzel, we had VB. Henderson was there for a little bit, and then he went forward and pretty much became our full forward with Beach. And those two actually worked quite well together. Who else do we have go through the wing? Hampton was on the wing for a period of time. We then also put in Menzel and Hampton in the midfield.
Yeah,
at centre bouncers.
I know Hampton got a couple of clever clearances from there too.
And South Adelaide defenders got a talking to from the umpire at the end of the first quarter, because I'm pretty sure we complained with what they were doing to Menzel. There was one bit in the first, when we actually did kick it into our forward line, to make sure that Menzel was nowhere near the ball. The South Adelaide defender with the back to the ball grabs him and just starts running him towards the pocket and dragging Menzel. And no free kick paid, which is why Menzel then, I think, gut punched one of them. Because their tactics were, they were very conscious of him and keeping him away from the ball, which then allowed Beach to have a wee bit of fun.
Nikki, I have to accuse the umpires of having a definite SANFL player bias. And
that's been all season, Macca.
Yeah, there's absolutely two sets of rules. One is as you would expect it to be, and the other one is turn a blind eye if it's a AFL player.
Yeah.
Let's run through some individual stats. We had Griggy getting 28 in Cam Ellis-Yeoman's absence.
A great game.
12,
yeah.
8 tackles, 9 clearances, 5 inside 50s. Another solid game from Mitch Grigg.
Increase his saleability if we can sell him.
He does those lovely little balks at SANFL level. You just know he's going to do it. And I'm pretty sure his opponent know he's going to do it. They just can't stop him.
Yeah, we had Dean Gore on 23, 13 and 10, 3 marks, 3 tackles, 3 clearances, 3 inside 50s. Good to see Dean up the stats sheet a bit. Harry Wigg had 22 touches to go with 6 tackles, 4 clearances, 4 inside 50s and 3 rebound 50s as well. So it looks like he was good at both ends of the ground, Nick.
Yeah, running up and back. He very much plays a Sloan role.
Yep. VB with 21 touches, 7 inside 50s. That's what you want from your
beautiful pass to Beach.
And, the others, Hampton, Knight, Ricky Henderson, Jake Kelly, who was on standby
Greenwood.
on stage for Cheney, Harry Greenwood, 10 tackles. Good game from him.
Was a good game, yep.
Of course, Jono Beach with 7 goals from 13 kicks, 9 marks. Pretty solid effort. What's the chances of him getting upgraded next year, you reckon?
Well, he's already on the senior list, and I think he will stay on the senior for Greenwood. I think so, Beach. Yes. Beach is, remember, we've upgraded him already.
Yeah, but
that's
only a full-time thing.
Yeah, that's only for the season. Only for the season.
I reckon he's doing enough to keep him on the senior list. He said he was a little bit, as he said, he started off the season well. He then fell down a little bit in the middle of the season when he got a couple of injuries, and he's built back up again. He's just been so consistent. Him and Otten, I think I saw it in the SANFL thread. Somebody described the pair of them that they have a professor in reading the player, reading the play. They just know where to go and how to get there and what the ball's going to do.
I was going to say, Jono Beach is a very clever player, and look,
he's strong overhead.
I really think he would certainly play well if he was given the opportunity. His biggest problem is going to be whether he gets the opportunity because of the amount of talent that we do have on our list. But is he worthy of one? He probably is worthy of an upgrade. But I don't know how many they are going to upgrade because I like Greenwood too. I think Greenwood looks like a player as well.
Yeah, I think Greenwood needs another year. Beach,
and then you throw in Keith.
McGovern's replacement if Mitch fell in a hole. You got Alex Keith as well, rightly said, Nikki, and of course Riley O'Brien.
Keith did 2 kicks. He lost his boot, and it's his left boot that he lost. So he's kicking with his sock because he's a left footer. They're still going about 45 metres. Which was hilarious watching them happen, going like, Keithy, do you want to go get your boot on? It might actually help you get a little bit further. But he did a really clever bit of play in that he took a mark on the half forward, just up from the 50. South player standing near him. He's pointed at the South player to the umpire. And when the umpire doesn't pay for him being too close, Keith then decides to play on a run towards the South player, who immediately comes at him. And, of course, the umpire then pays the 25. He's a very clever player.
I think he's going to be an asset in the long run, I think. I wouldn't be mind betting he'll probably end up eventually on the main list too.
Now,
he's very tall.
Paul Seedsman, how did he go? 15 touches, 6 tackles.
Quality.
A little bit fumbly at the start.
Yeah, but they were quality touches that he had, Nicky. His disposal of the ball was very good.
Any chance?
There were a couple of runs. It was interesting because Pikey was in the box. He was often the whiteboard carrier. for uni, which was kind of amusing to see. I quite liked what he was doing. The fumbles and things like that, for me, it was just that touch because he's been out for a couple of games, and that was just a bit obvious. His very first touch, he did a beautiful swoop on the ball, but he did the thing where he thought what he was about to do ahead before he'd gotten the ball, and he just kind of left it behind. And he was really down on himself for that. I'm trying to remember the name of the wingman for South Adelaide, who's really quick. And he's taken off after a loose ball, and I thought, he's going to run away from him. Seeds went pace for pace with him. We actually forget how fast Seedsman actually is. So on the SCG, would we bring him in? Who are we going to drop? Because McKay played so well. I think if there was...
No changes. There'll be no changes.
Yeah. I think if there was a little bit of drop-off in McKay's game, he might have been a possibility. He would probably be in that conversation, but I don't think he'll quite come in yet.
Yep. All right, well, we better leave it there. I've got a dilemma next week in the SANFL because the Crows are playing Sturt, so I'm sorry I might be doing a Sturt podcast next week. A bit disappointed.
And I'm trying to convince the family to drive to Sydney, so I may not be on here. So
well,
you'll have to do the SANFL report.
Oh, there you go. But overall, a pretty good week for the Adelaide Crows Footy Club. 2 finals victories is all you could ask for, and that's what we delivered. Now we've got Sydney next week, obviously. The Hawks take on the Bulldogs, and Geelong and GWS get the week off. Who do you guys reckon out of the Hawks and the Bulldogs?
I think there's going to be a very pissed off Hawthorn, though.
I think Hawthorn will win it.
I think the Hawks will smack them, to be honest. I don't think they're going to go out in straight sets. They'll smack Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And at this early stage of proceedings, assuming no changes, what do you reckon about our game?
I think we're a very good chance.
We're a chance. I'm trying to build my optimism up at this stage.
I actually had the same feeling about this game that I had about the round 12 match against West Coast. I'm keeping a lid on it, but I'm quietly very confident that we're going to win against Sydney. I just think that the stars have aligned. The SCG doesn't scare us. They've got a couple of niggles, and they've got forming going out in straight sets. So I reckon it'll be tough and a close game. But I just have a feeling that we might be talking about Patrick Dangerfield v Adelaide Crows in a couple of weeks. Anyway, time will tell.
Well, you backed me. You backed me when I went for 10 goals. I'll back you then. I'll go. I'll go for us to win too.
Yeah, that's just the blind leading the blind, mate. Anyway, look, we've gone over time, so we better wrap it up. Thanks so much for the people that are listening. You can catch us during the week on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live. Scorpus will be back with me on Thursday for our preview. Like us on Facebook, BF Crowcast. Follow us on Twitter, BF Crowcast. Have a look at our website, crowsfancentral.com. Rate us on iTunes, and above all else, make sure you tune in next week for another weekend wrap. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And to all the people out there, just be grateful you're not a Port Barracker. Catch you later.
Just on that, I was having some Twitter rant with some guy on. There's a Twitter account called Crows Fan Say, and he was giving the Crows shit for one reason or another, and I just pointed out to him that it's a Saturday night, and he was watching a Crows game because he had nothing better to do, so... Poor old Port supporters. Anyway, there we go. We'll catch you later. See you guys.
Catch you later.